What if the crushing seriousness of your daily life, the anxiety that follows every decision, comes from believing a story that isn't true? We've wandered into a bizarre predicament, moving through our days as if we're navigating a minefield where a single error could spell absolute catastrophe. We treat our existence with such heavy solemnity, as though we're being constantly judged on a permanent record. But I want to propose a different lens. What if this entire human journey, with all its intricate drama and nuance, isn't a final exam, but an immensely sophisticated, open-ended simulation? And like any good simulation, once you understand its fundamental operating principles, you can move through it with remarkable grace and a rediscovered sense of playful engagement. Cast your mind back to your earliest years. Your reality was constructed from games. You were a deep-sea diver, a wild animal tamer, a chef cooking imaginary feasts. You invested completely in these identities. You were the knight on a noble quest. Yet, underneath it all, a core part of you never lost the awareness that it was all a temporary construct. The sound of your parents' voice calling you home would break the spell, and you would leave the character behind in an instant, without a moment of grief or existential doubt. You didn't suffer because the dragon slaying was over. Somewhere along the winding road to maturity, we let that fundamental wisdom slip away. We evolved from being casual players into career method actors in the production of our own lives. We sank so deep into our assigned parts: the executive, the provider, the failure, the success story, that the backdrop of the stage vanished from our view. We began to accept, on a visceral level, that we literally are these temporary roles. And the instant you forget you are merely wearing an elaborate costume, the entire theater transforms into an inescapable prison. Let me be perfectly clear. To label life a game is not to diminish its significance or profound meaning. Games can demand everything we have. They can be arenas for immense courage and creativity. The crucial difference lies in the inner posture you hold. You can participate with total commitment while simultaneously preserving a sense of inner liberty, lightness of touch. The first and most jarring rule of this universal game is this: you are not the personality you have spent a lifetime assembling. The person you call me, with its specific history, its catalog of fears and dreams, is simply the player character you are piloting in this vast experience. It is an elaborate disguise, a role inhabited with such conviction that you have managed to forget the actor behind it. So who or what is the actual you? This is the point where our inquiry becomes truly compelling. The authentic you is the one operating the console. You are the aware space that notices thoughts as they arise, that observes feelings as they swell and fade. You are the boundless, silent screen upon which the entire movie of your life is projected. Understanding this is like a performer breaking character mid-monologue, suddenly recalling the green room and their own civilian identity. In that moment of clarity, you see that you are not imprisoned within the character. You can execute the role with excellence, you can savor the narrative, but you are fundamentally separate from it. You are the canvas, not the painting. Here is a second rule that eludes the vast majority of participants. This game has no conclusive finish line. There is no supreme achievement to unlock, no final boss to defeat that grants you everlasting peace. The entire reward, the core meaning, is contained within the process of engagement itself. We have been taught to perceive life as a pilgrimage toward a distant horizon, but it is much more accurately compared to a musical composition or a spontaneous dance. You don't dance with the goal of occupying a particular square on the floor. You don't listen to a beautiful piece of music solely to hear the final resolving note. The value is inherent in the melody, the harmony, the very act of listening or moving. Yet, we conduct our lives as if we are in a frantic race against time. We sprint through our childhood to reach adulthood. We blast through our schooling to secure a career. We exhaust ourselves in our professions to attain retirement. And then we frequently discover ourselves in a state of quiet reflection, asking where all the years have gone. We were so hyper-focused on arriving at some future destination that we entirely missed the only scenery we were ever actually traveling through, which is here, in this ever-unfolding present. The game is only ever live in the now, not in the archived past, not in the anticipated future, but squarely in this continuous present moment. Are you truly inhabiting this space? Or are you just reading the itinerary instead of taking the journey? Another mind-altering aspect of this game is its inherent bias in your favor. How is that possible? Because no matter what narrative twists unfold in your personal story, regardless of the archetype you temporarily embody, you cannot ultimately be defeated. The reason is simple, yet profound. You are not just a solitary contestant within the game. In a very tangible way, you are the entire game field. Reflect on the nature of a vivid dream. Inside that dream, you might be escaping from a fearsome creature. The terror feels 100% real, but upon waking, you realize with stunning clarity that you were simultaneously the dreamer having the experience, the protagonist being pursued, and the very energy creating the pursuer. You are the totality of the dream reality. In an analogous way, you are not merely a tiny speck of stardust having a fleeting moment of consciousness. You are the consciousness of the universe itself, experiencing its own infinite nature through the particular focused viewpoint you call I. When you truly internalize this cosmic punchline, it is the ultimate punchline. Your entire relationship with existence is reconfigured. You stop interpreting events as personal affront. When someone directs criticism at you, instead of launching a counterattack, you might calmly observe, how intriguing, here is the universal consciousness performing the part of the challenger. What insight is this interaction offering me? When you are confronted by a significant difficulty, instead of crying out, why is this happening to me? You might instead ask, why am I, as the source, generating this specific circumstance for my own growth? Because if you accept that you are the entire game, then you cannot be a powerless pawn of fate. You are the very substance of fate, presenting itself to yourself as engaging obstacles and compelling story arcs, all designed to keep the journey interesting and transformative. Now, this is a vital distinction to make. This perspective does not encourage detachment or a lack of caring. On the contrary, when you know you are involved in a grand simulation, you can engage with more strategic intelligence and heartfelt passion than ever before. You can care profoundly about your choices without allowing your core identity to shatter when outcomes are unfavorable. You can love with absolute vulnerability without being completely annihilated if that love changes form. You can work with relentless drive without staking your entire self-worth on immediate, tangible results. The secret is a harmonious blend of deep involvement and inner spaciousness. It's the way a master martial artist moves. They are fully present, every fiber of their being committed to the flow of action, yet they are not rigidly attached to a specific outcome. They are an dynamic, responsive dance with the energy of the moment itself. Most of us, however, approach life as if we are performing a meticulously scored piece of classical music under a tyrannical conductor. Every single note must be played exactly as written in the sheet music. Any deviation is treated as a catastrophic failure. There is no allowance for spontaneous expression, no room for creative interpretation, but human existence is far more akin to a jazz ensemble. There is a foundational chord structure, a steady rhythm, but within that flexible framework, there exists an infinite landscape of potential for improvisation, discovery, and pure play. Here is one of the most emancipating rules the game has to offer. You are under no contract to be consistent. You have zero requirement to remain identical to the person you were even 1 hour ago. The character you have been inhabiting, with all its perceived flaws and fixed personality traits, is not a life sentence. It is more akin to a wardrobe. You can try on different outfits. We expend colossal amounts of mental and emotional energy defending a personal brand, protecting a public reputation, maintaining a consistent personality. But what if you could consciously select which version of yourself is most appropriate for each new moment? What if, instead of being shackled to the narratives of your past, you could fluidly reinvent yourself in a sane and adaptive way, allowing you to respond to fresh situations with genuine creativity and presence? Young children are natural masters of this. In the span of a single afternoon, they can fluidly transition from being a superhero to a teacher to a sleeping bear. They do not anguish over maintaining character continuity. They never stop to think, but wait, 5 minutes ago, I was a firefighter, so it would be inconsistent for me to now be a quiet mouse. They simply allow one role to dissolve as the next one emerges. And here is a breathtaking, unifying truth. Every single individual you cross paths with is another expression of the same fundamental consciousness, wearing a different disguise, playing a different part. That frustrating coworker, that complicated family member, that kind stranger who helped you with your bags, they are all reflections of you, exploring the infinite variety of what it means to be a distinct character in this grand, unfolding story. When this realization dawns, not just intellectually, but experientially, compassion blossoms of its own accord. Not a pitying, superior form of compassion, but a deep, resonant recognition that you are all collaborators in the same cosmic production. This does not mean that everyone is identical on the surface. Clearly, individuals have unique traits, diverse cultural backgrounds, and vastly different ways of expressing their roles. But at the most fundamental level, the aware presence looking out from behind their eyes is the very same aware presence looking out from behind your own. We are all individual waves on the same vast ocean, each with a unique shape and path, but all consisting of the same essential water. Now, let's turn our attention to the most challenging level of this game, the aspect that most people find the most difficult to master. How do you play skillfully when the game seems to turn dark? How do you navigate authentic pain and hardship when you feel you've been dealt an unfair hand? The first and most critical distinction to make is between pain and suffering. Pain is a natural, unavoidable signal within the human system. Stub your toe hard, and a sharp pain will flash. Lose someone you love deeply, and a profound grief will wash over you. These are authentic, biological, and emotional responses hardwired into the experience. They provide the game with its necessary depth, contrast, and emotional richness. Suffering, however, is an entirely different phenomenon. Suffering is the additional, self-generated narrative we layer on top of the raw pain. It is the mental resistance to the current reality, the frantic internal protest that shouts, "This is unacceptable. This should not be happening to me." Raw pain communicates, "This is an intense, unpleasant sensation." Suffering insists, "This is unjust. It defines who I am, and it will never, ever end." When you learn to discern this vital difference, you can begin to experience the pure, unadulterated sensation of pain without automatically compounding it with the thick, sticky story of suffering. Pain is a signal. Suffering is the story you tell about it. You can meet life's inevitable challenges without automatically adopting the identity of the victim. You can feel the authentic ache of sadness without simultaneously believing you are failing because you are not happy. You can encounter significant setbacks without immediately dramatizing them into a narrative that your entire life is ruined. Envision your inner world as the ever-changing sky, where the patterns of thought and emotion pass through with thunderstorms of rage, bright sunshine of joy, dense fog of uncertainty. The sky itself does not cling to the clear blue days or resist the stormy ones. It holds all weather with a profound, allowing spaciousness. You can learn to cultivate that same sky-like quality for your own passing inner states. This understanding leads directly to another game rule that can conserve a massive reservoir of your personal energy. You are not obligated to have a solidified opinion about every single thing that occurs. You do not need to constantly categorize every experience into rigid boxes of good, bad, right, wrong, desirable, undesirable. Sometimes you can simply note how interesting and leave the mental judgment aside. We have been culturally conditioned to be perpetual evaluators, always in the process of deciding whether we approve or disapprove of the present moment reality. This relentless mental judging is incredibly depleting. It's like being a food critic who can never simply enjoy a meal because they are too busy analyzing every flavor and ingredient. Sometimes you can just taste, just experience, just be present with what is, without needing to formulate a definitive position on it. The master player learns to hold all opinions and preferences lightly. They may have inclinations, but they do not fuse their identity with them. They can savor their favorite dish without descending into frustration when it's not on the menu. The game is intrinsically designed to surprise you. The very moment you believe you have the entire system figured out, it will present you with a variable you never anticipated. The instant you become comfortable and secure in your current role, the plot will twist, inviting you to step into a completely different part. Instead of resisting these inevitable surprises with fear and rigidity, you can learn to welcome them as essential features. They are the primary mechanism that keeps the game from becoming stale and predictable. Imagine playing a video game where every enemy behaved the exact same way every time, or reading a novel where you could predict every single plot point from the first chapter. How monotonous would that become? The unexpected twists, the sudden revelations, the unforeseen challenges, these are the elements that transform life from a tedious routine into a gripping adventure. When you release the exhausting need to control every minute detail, When you cultivate an appetite for surprise, you begin to find the fabric of existence endlessly fascinating rather than perpetually frustrating. Now, one of the most freeing discoveries you can make within this game is the realization that there are no genuine mistakes, only learning experiences and collected data. What you typically label as failures are simply field experiments that yielded results different from your initial hypothesis. What you celebrate as successes are experiments that aligned with or exceeded your projected outcomes. But they're all merely data points being gathered in the magnificent, ongoing experiment of being a human being. A toddler learning to walk does not interpret each fall as a personal failure. They simply get back up, their nervous system having integrated new information about balance and momentum. We, as adults, somehow develop the belief that we should be able to execute every new endeavor perfectly on the very first attempt. We treat missteps as indelible marks of inadequacy rather than as natural, integral components of the learning curve. We transmute every stumble into compelling evidence that we are fundamentally broken. What if you could approach your entire adult life with the same open, experimental mindset of that toddler? What if every perceived error was simply valuable intel? Every so-called failure was just constructive feedback for your next attempt. How much mental and emotional weight would you instantly shed if you were no longer carrying the heavy burden of judging your own performance as perpetually imperfect? Here's another characteristic of this game that might catch you off guard. The most advanced players are frequently the ones who appear from the outside to be exerting the least effort. They glide through their lives with a quality of effortless action. Not because they are lazy or disengaged, but because they have learned to cooperate with the natural currents of life rather than perpetually struggling against them. It is the difference between trying to swim directly upstream against a powerful current and gracefully floating with the flow of the river. Both scenarios require awareness and skill, but one leads to rapid exhaustion and despair, while the other leads to sustained energy and discovery. When you begin to understand the deeper currents of existence, when you learn to read the subtle patterns and rhythms, you can accomplish significantly more with a fraction of the struggle and strain. This is not an endorsement of laziness or passivity. It is a call for intelligent, discerning action, knowing precisely when to take decisive steps and when to pause in receptive stillness, when to apply firm pressure and when to yield softly. It embodies the ancient Chinese principle of Wu Wei, often clumsily translated as known action, but more accurately, meaning action that is perfectly aligned with the natural flow of the Tao. It is like water navigating its path around solid rocks in a stream. The water does not waste energy fighting the rock. It simply, patiently flows around it, and through this persistent, genial action, it gradually transforms the landscape. This is the profound power of the soft, yielding, approach the light touch of the skillful player who understands that brute force is rarely the most effective solution to life's complex challenges. A pivotal skill for mastering this game involves learning to inhabit multiple, seemingly contradictory roles simultaneously without losing your fundamental center or becoming confused about your core identity. You can be a pillar of firm, unshakable strength in a business meeting and a vessel of gentle, nurturing tenderness with a crying child. You can be a humble, open-minded student in one context and a confident, knowledgeable teacher in another. The adept player does not get permanently stuck in any single identity. They can move fluidly between these various hats without their essential self becoming fragmented. Most people make the critical error of trying to force a single, monolithic personality onto every situation they encounter. They mistakenly believe that authenticity means presenting the exact same face to the world at all times, never adapting, never evolving. But genuine authenticity is not about rigid consistency. It is about being appropriate, responsive, and true to the deeper self in each unique moment, each distinct relationship, and each specific context. It is like being a supremely skilled actor who can portray a vast range of characters with utter conviction, precisely because they are intimately connected to the universal human truth that underlies and connects all roles. Now, let me share with you one of the most profound and empowering discoveries available to you within this game. The rules are not fixed in stone. They are dynamic, fluid, and they can change often based on your own choices and the very manner in which you choose to play. This is the point where the game transcends mere mechanics and becomes truly magical, truly co-creative. Most conventional games come with a rigid, immutable set of rules that every player must obey, but the game of life is more akin to a massive, collaborative improvisation, where the rules themselves can evolve organically as the play unfolds. Your core beliefs, your dominant attitudes, your fundamental ways of being in the world actively influence and shape how the game manifests for you. If you consistently approach life through a lens of fear and deep suspicion, you will inevitably encounter a world filled with situations and people that seem to confirm and validate your fears. If you choose to approach life with a spirit of open curiosity and trusting openness, you will tend to find a world brimming with unexpected opportunities and synchronistic adventures. If you consciously or unconsciously play the role of the victim in your own story, you will find no shortage of volunteers to play the parts of villains and oppressors. If you courageously decide to play the role of the hero on your own journey, you will consistently discover within yourself untapped wells of courage, resourcefulness, and creative power. This is not merely simplistic, positive thinking or naive wish fulfillment. It is a practical recognition that your own consciousness is not a passive observer of a predetermined reality. It is an active participatory force in the very creation of your experiential reality. Your focused awareness, your quality of attention, and your moment-to-moment choices are all active, potent ingredients in the ongoing unfolding of your personal experience. Here is one of the most beautiful and heartening aspects of this entire cosmic game. In the end, everyone has the potential to win, though not in the narrow, competitive way we usually conceptualize winning. Our conventional model of victory is a zero-sum game. For me to win, someone else must lose. But in this expansive, cosmic game, your personal victory does not necessitate, nor does it require, anyone else's defeat. In fact, the more skillfully, compassionately, and wisely you play your own part, the more you inadvertently help and inspire everyone around you to elevate their own game. When you are abiding in a state of genuine, unshakable happiness, you do not cause misery in others. You naturally inspire them to seek and find their own sources of joy. When you are rooted in a deep, authentic inner peace, you do not create conflict in your environment. You become a calming presence that helps others discover their own capacity for peace. When you are courageously and authentically yourself, you do not diminish or threaten others. You give them a profound permission slip to be courageously and authentically themselves. This is the fundamental reason why the true masters, the genuinely skillful players, often appear to be operating on a completely different wavelength from everyone else. They are not in competition with anyone. They are not trying to prove their superiority. They are not keeping a mental scorecard of wins and losses. They are simply playing for the sheer, unadulterated joy of playing itself. And mysteriously, magically, everyone in their orbit begins to play with more grace, more kindness, and more joy as a result. Let me conclude with one final, essential rule, perhaps the most important of them all. The game never actually concludes. What we perceive and fear as an ending, what we call death, is merely a transition. It is a change of costume, a shift to a different role, a lowering of one stage's curtain and the rising of another's. The player, the true you, the fundamental awareness that has been witnessing this entire magnificent performance, continues its journey. When this knowledge moves from an intellectual concept to a lived, embodied certainty, it changes absolutely everything. The desperate, clawing need to cling to your current role, your current body, your current circumstances, begins to relax its grip. The paralyzing terror of change and the unknown begins to soften and dissolve. You realize, in the deepest part of your being, that you are not just a temporary participant visiting the game. You are the game itself, eternally playing, eternally exploring the infinite possibilities of existence through an endless succession of characters, stories, and forms. And so here we are, approaching the conclusion of our exploration today. Though of course, in the grand scheme, there is no real conclusion, just as there was no absolute beginning. There is only this timeless, eternal, now this endless, beginningless game, this magnificent, unfolding play of universal consciousness, discovering and recognizing itself through every conceivable form and experience. The next time you catch yourself burdened by the heavy seriousness of life, the next time you feel the familiar weight of anxiety on your shoulders, I invite you to recall this conversation. You are not a small, isolated, fragile individual struggling to survive in a vast, indifferent, and hostile universe. You are the universe itself, temporarily, playfully, experimenting with what it feels like to be an individual. You are the cosmos, exploring the sensations of apparent struggle, apparent success, apparent failure, and apparent victory. It is all part of an immense, divine play. It is all a form of dancing. It is all a kind of music, and you are not just the dancer. You are also the dance. You are not just the musician. You are also the music being played. Play skillfully, play with that light, effortless touch that can only arise from the deep, unshakable knowing that it is all one single, unified, magnificent cosmic game. And remember this, in this unique game, everyone ultimately gets to find their own version of winning, because at the most fundamental level, everyone is a reflection of you, and you are a reflection of everyone. We are all, quite literally, the one conscious universe playing at the delightful illusion of being many. The game itself never truly ends. It only ever changes its form, its expression, its melody, and what an astonishingly beautiful, complex, and delightful game it continues to be. If this perspective has sparked a new way of seeing for you, if it has opened the door you didn't know was there, please support this channel by liking this video. It genuinely helps Winds of Thought reach more people who are ready to question the nature of their reality. Thank you for your time, and thank you for playing.